At our engagement party, she whispered, "I'm having second thoughts about everything." I canceled the wedding and told everyone why. Last week, she saw me at the park with my wife and daughter. Hey viewers, before we move on to the video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you want to see more stories like this. Thanks. The fairy lights strung through the old oak tree twinkled like 1,000 captured fireflies. Laughter, warm and easy, bubbled up from groups of our friends and family clustered across the backyard. The air smelled of grilled meat, expensive perfume, and the sweet, hopeful scent of a summer night. Our engagement party, hers and mine. I stood by the makeshift bar, a glass of whiskey in my hand, watching her. Sarah was holding court by the fireplace, her laugh, that loud, uninhibited cackle I used to love, cutting through the murmur of the party. She looked beautiful. The emerald green dress I'd bought her for her birthday clung to her in a way that made me feel a possessive pride. This was all for us. The 5-year journey, the arguments, the compromises, all culminating in this perfect, shimmering moment. I was all in. I had been since the day I'd asked her on that rain-soaked hike up Miller's Point. The memory flashed, bright and clear against the party lights. Her, breathless and smiling, her hair plastered to her cheeks. Me, fumbling with the ring box, my hands numb from cold and nerves. The yes, that was more of a joyful scream, echoing off the wet granite cliffs. It had felt so real, so earned. My best friend, Dave, clapped me on the back, jolting me back to the present. "Can't believe you're actually locking it down, man. She's a force of nature. The best kind," I said, and I meant it. Sarah was a hurricane, and for years, I'd been happy to be the eye of her storm. That's when I saw her detach from her group, her smile faltering as she caught my eye. She gestured with a slight tilt of her head toward the darker, quieter part of the garden, near the old rose bushes. My heart gave a little leap. A secret moment? A stolen kiss away from the crowd? I gave Dave a wink and navigated through the well-wishers, my focus entirely on her. The sounds of the party faded as we moved behind the large oak, the twinkling lights now just a distant glow. The scent of roses was thick and cloying. "Hey, you okay?" I asked, reaching for her hand. It was cold, and she pulled it away, tucking it under her arm. "Everyone's having a great time. You're the star." She wouldn't look at me. Instead, she stared at a half-bloomed rose, her jaw tight. The silence stretched, becoming heavy, wrong. "Sarah?" She took a sharp breath. "Mark, I'm having second thoughts." The words landed like a physical blow to my chest. I actually took a half step back. My mind scrambled, trying to soften them, to find a reasonable context. Cold feet. Everyone gets cold feet. About the party? I forced a laugh, but it came out strangled. "It's a bit overwhelming, I know. We can sneak away soon. Just say the word." Her eyes flickered to me then, and the coldness in them stole the air from my lungs. It wasn't anxiety. It was dismissal. "No," she said, her voice low and terrifyingly steady. "Not about the party. About everything. Us. This." She waved a hand vaguely in the direction of the laughter, the music, the future we'd planned. Trapped. The word felt foreign and poisonous on my tongue. "Sarah, we planned this together." "What are you talking about?" She finally turned to face me fully, and there was a strange, almost smug defiance in her expression. It was then I noticed her friends, Chloe and Megan, standing not far away, pretending to examine a hydrangea bush but watching us intently. This was a performance. I was being put in my place, and she wanted witnesses. "I just need to know if this is it," she said, her voice rising slightly, ensuring they could hear. "If you're it. It all feels so final. And I'm not sure I want final." The buzz of the party completely vanished, replaced by a roaring in my ears. I saw the whole scene with a horrifying, crystalline clarity. The carefully chosen venue, our families, our friends, all just a backdrop for her to voice her contempt. She wasn't sharing a vulnerability. She was staging a public execution of our relationship. The love I'd felt moments before curdled into a solid, cold weight in my gut. I looked at her, at the woman I was ready to build a life with, and I saw a stranger. The hurricane had finally turned on me, but I wouldn't be destroyed by it. The anger, the hurt, the desperate urge to beg, it all rose in a hot wave, and I consciously, deliberately, let it pass. I would not give her, or her audience, that satisfaction. My face, which must have been a mask of shock, settled into a calm neutrality. I nodded slowly, as if processing a minor piece of business news. Okay, I said, my voice eerily quiet but clear. I understand. I saw a flicker of surprise in her eyes. This wasn't the reaction she'd scripted. She expected drama, tears, a scene that would justify her trapped narrative. She got nothing. I didn't say another word. I turned my back on her and walked away, leaving her standing there in the shadow of the roses. I walked right back into the heart of the party, the noise rushing back in a wave. I saw the questioning looks, the whispered concerns. I walked to the center of the yard, picked up a spoon, and tapped it gently against my whiskey glass. The conversations died down. 100 faces turned to me, expectant, smiling. My parents, her parents, Dave with a confused frown. Everyone, I said, my voice carrying without a tremor. Thank you all so much for coming tonight to celebrate with us. I paused, making eye contact with a few people. It seems the celebration is premature. The engagement is off. Sarah is having second thoughts about everything. So, please, enjoy the rest of the food and drinks. The party's over. The silence that followed was absolute. And in that silence, I took my first clean breath in minutes. The betrayal was complete, and my dignity, though it felt like a suit of armor I'd never asked for, was intact. The silence in my apartment was a physical presence. It was heavier than the quiet of a library, deeper than the hush of a sleeping city. It was the silence of a future that had just been erased. The drive home from the party was a blur of streetlights and the hollow roar of the engine. I hadn't looked back. I hadn't said another word to Sarah, to her gawking friends, to my stunned parents. I just walked to my car, got in, and left. The first thing I did was take off the crisp blue button-down shirt I'd bought for the party. It felt like a costume. I dropped it on the floor, not in anger, but in a kind of numb dissociation. I stood in the middle of my living room, in a white t-shirt and my dress pants, and just breathed. The apartment, which had felt like a temporary stopgap until we bought a house, now felt cavernous and foreign. My phone started buzzing. First, it was my mom, then Dave, then a flurry of texts from numbers I didn't recognize, probably Sarah's family. I picked up the phone, my thumb hovering over the power button. But that felt like running. Instead, I went into the settings and turned on Do Not Disturb, allowing only calls from my parents and Dave to come through. I wasn't hiding. I was creating a perimeter. The next morning, I woke up at 6 a.m., not because I was well rested, but because my body had simply run out of sleep. The reality of it hit me the moment I opened my eyes. It wasn't a bad dream. The memory of the twinkling lights and her cold, performative voice was etched into my mind. The feeling wasn't one of heart-shattering grief, not yet. It was a profound, bone-deep confusion, like I'd been following a map only to discover the world itself had been redrawn overnight. I made coffee. The mundane ritual was an anchor. Then, I went to my laptop. I opened a spreadsheet I'd lovingly titled Wedding_Plan_V3. I scanned the list of vendors, the Ridgewood venue, Magnolia Catering, Aria String Quartet, Premier Photography. My first call was to the venue manager, a cheerful woman named Brenda. Ridgewood Events, this is Brenda. Hi Brenda, it's Mark Evans. We have the wedding booked for October 15th. Why, hello Mark. So excited for you and Sarah. What can I do for you? I need to cancel the booking. The line went silent for a beat. Oh, I see. Is everything all right? The engagement has been broken, I said, my voice flat and even. I apologize for the late notice. I understand we'll forfeit the deposit. Please consider it done. Thank you for your time. I hung up before she could offer condolences or ask prying questions. I repeated the process with the caterer, the quartet, the photographer. My script was the same with each one, polite, firm, and brutally final. The engagement has been broken. Cancel everything. Forfeit the deposit. Thank you. I was a machine, systematically dismantling the future we'd built. There was a strange, grim satisfaction in it. With every cancellation, I was taking back a piece of control. 2 days after the party, the doorbell rang. I knew it was her. I'd ignored all her texts, a chaotic mix of "we need to talk" and "you humiliated me," and she had run out of patience. I opened the door. Sarah stood there, her arms crossed. She looked tired, but there was no remorse in her eyes. Only a defensive, simmering anger. "You didn't have to cancel everything so dramatically," she said, brushing past me into the apartment. "We could have talked. You just shut down." I closed the door and leaned against it, not offering her a seat. "You told me at our engagement party, in front of everyone we know, that you felt trapped. What was there to talk about, Sarah?" I'm not a prison guard. She threw her hands up in exasperation. You're so black and white. It was a feeling, a moment of doubt. You're just proving my point that you can't handle complexity. You can't handle real, messy emotions. I just looked at her. The hypocrisy was breathtaking. My ability to handle complexity isn't the issue. Your decision to share that particular feeling at that particular moment was a message. I received it. We're done. Done? She spat the word out. Just like that? 5 years, and you're just done because of one conversation. It wasn't a conversation, I said, my voice still calm, which seemed to infuriate her more. It was a declaration. You made your choice. I'm respecting it. I was scared, she yelled, the facade cracking to reveal the panic beneath. I needed reassurance. Not for you to burn everything to the ground. You didn't need reassurance, I countered, finally pushing off the door and walking toward the kitchen. I needed to put space between us. You needed an audience. You got one. Now you have to live with the performance. I picked up my coffee mug. I think you should leave. She stared at me, her chest heaving. The man she expected, the one who would beg, who would try to logic his way back into her good graces, wasn't here. I was someone else now. Someone she couldn't manipulate. Fine, she whispered, her voice thick with tears of frustration. You're a coward. You're running away because it got hard. I didn't respond. I just took a sip of my coffee and looked out the kitchen window. After a moment, I heard the front door open and then slam shut. The silence returned, but it felt different now. It was no longer the silence of absence, but of resolution. I picked up my phone and went to my social media apps. I didn't scroll. I went directly to the settings and blocked her. On Instagram, on Facebook, everywhere. I wasn't doing it out of anger. It was a practical necessity, like canceling the wedding vendors. She was a canceled vendor in the project of my life. That afternoon, I called Dave. Hey man, I said when he answered. You free for a beer tonight? Mark? Jesus, are you okay? What the hell happened? I'll tell you tonight, I said. But I'm okay. I'm really okay. And the strange thing was, in that moment, it was true. The pain was there, a dull ache, but it was overshadowed by a profound sense of clarity. The map was gone, but the compass inside me was finally, after years of spinning, pointing true north. The world didn't end. The sun kept rising. That was the first surprise. I'd somehow expected the universe to acknowledge the cataclysm, to grind to a halt in solidarity with my shattered life. Instead, Tuesday came, and I went to work. The sky was a brilliant, cloudless blue, a mockery of my internal gray. The office was the worst. The pitying looks, the hushed conversations that died when I walked into the break room. I held my head high, offered a tight smile, and said, "It's all good. Appreciate the concern," to anyone brave enough to approach me. I became a master of deflection. I buried myself in a complex data migration project, losing myself in lines of code and system architecture. It was clean, logical, and it obeyed commands. It was the antithesis of Sarah. Weeks bled into months. The initial numbness gave way to a low-grade, constant hum of sadness, but it was a manageable hum. I started going to the gym again, not with rage, but with a quiet determination. The physical exhaustion was a welcome substitute for the emotional kind. I reconnected with friends Sarah had always subtly dismissed as too boring or not ambitious enough. They were the ones who showed up with pizza and video games, who didn't need to talk about it, who just let me be. The information about her life started to trickle in, not because I sought it out, but because our social circles, though fractured, still had overlapping threads. The updates came through Dave, who had become my reluctant, unofficial news feed. The first update came about 3 months after the party. We were watching a game at his place. So, heard from Mike, Dave said, cautiously sipping his beer. Mike was a friend who straddled both our groups. Yeah. I kept my eyes on the screen. Yeah. Said Sarah's been seeing some guy. That musician, Leo, she was always talking about before, you know. I didn't know. Leo was the free-spirited guitarist from a local band she'd followed for years. He represented everything she'd accused me of not being. Unpredictable, artistic, exciting. I just nodded. Good for her. Dave looked at me, surprised. That's it. Dude, he's a total flake. Mike said it lasted like 6 weeks. Leo ghosted her after he got a gig in Portland. I felt nothing. No schadenfreude, no vindication. It was just a data point. Sounds about right, I said, and took a sip of my beer. Past the chips. The next update was more about the fallout. Another few months later, Dave mentioned running into Chloe, Sarah's toxic lieutenant, at a bar. She was a mess, man, Dave reported, a hint of disgust in his voice. Try to give me some sob story about how Sarah's been having a rough time. Apparently, a lot of people thought the whole engagement party thing was, well, fucked up. Her friend group kinda splintered. No one wants to be around that kind of drama. I listened, my face neutral. I thought of Chloe and Megan watching from the hydrangea bush, their faces eager for the spectacle. I felt a distant pang, not for Sarah's isolation, but for the sheer waste of it all. The friendships, the trust, all sacrificed for a moment of theatrical cruelty. The final piece of karma drip came almost a year later. My mom, who still occasionally ran into Sarah's mother at the grocery store, called me one evening. I saw Carol today, she said, her tone carefully neutral. She looked tired. She mentioned Sarah? Well, she didn't get that promotion she was up for at the marketing firm. Carol said she's been distracted since everything happened. I murmured, scrolling through work emails on my laptop. The news was unsurprising. Sarah had always tied her self-worth to external validation, her job, her social status, the perceived excitement of her life. When the foundation of our relationship, the one thing that had been stable, crumbled, it was inevitable the rest would wobble. Are you okay hearing this, sweetie? Mom asked, her voice soft with concern. I'm fine, Mom, I said, and I meant it. It's just news. It doesn't have anything to do with me anymore. And that was the truth. Listening to these updates was like hearing a weather report for a country I'd no longer planned to visit. A hurricane might be hitting the coast, but I was inland, safe, and building a stronger house. The pain was a relic. The love was a memory. What I felt for Sarah now was a profound and absolute indifference. She had become a stranger, and her struggles were the struggles of a stranger. The chapter was closed. The book was on the shelf. I had new stories to write. The first attempt was almost laughable in its audacity. It had been 6 months of perfect, healing silence. I was at the gym, my phone buzzing on the bench next to me. I finished my set, wiped the sweat from my brow, and picked it up. A text from an unknown number, but the area code was familiar. Unknown number, 6:14 p.m. Hey, it's Sarah. I know I probably shouldn't be texting you, but I was just thinking about you. Hope you're doing okay. It was like a faint, distant echo from a life I'd evacuated. There was no apology, no acknowledgement of the nuclear bomb she'd dropped. Just a casual hey, as if she'd bumped into me at a coffee shop. I felt a flicker of something, not anger, not longing, but a cold disdain for the sheer lack of self-awareness. I didn't block the number. I simply deleted the message and went back to my workout. No response. The second attempt was more desperate. A year to the day after the engagement party, my phone lit up with a voicemail notification. I was in the middle of a coding session, deep in a state of flow. I almost ignored it, but something made me click play. I put it on speaker and leaned back in my chair. Her voice was thick with tears, the performance quality gone, replaced by a raw, shaky panic. Mark, it's me. God, I listened to this beep. I made the biggest mistake of my life. He was nothing. A distraction. What we had was real. It was solid. I was just scared and stupid. Please, can we just talk? Just for 5 minutes. Please. I saved the voicemail. Not out of any sentimental attachment, but as a digital trophy. A receipt for a bullet dodged. It was hard evidence of the chaos I had willingly walked away from. I felt a scientist's cold curiosity, analyzing the specimen of her regret. But I felt no urge to engage. No response. The third attempt involved a flying monkey. A week after the voicemail, my phone rang. Chloe, Sarah's chief enabler. The one who had watched from the bushes with gleeful anticipation. I almost didn't answer, but a morbid curiosity got the better of me. Mark. Her voice was sharp, accusatory from the first syllable, as if I'd been the one causing trouble. Chloe, I said, my tone flat. What can I do for you? You need to stop being so stubborn. She launched in, no pleasantries. She's a mess. A complete mess. She's sorry, okay? Are you really that heartless? You loved her once. Don't you care what this is doing to her? I leaned back, adopting the tone of a customer service agent dealing with an irrational complaint. The professional archetype. Chloe, Sarah and I are no longer in a relationship. Her emotional state is not my responsibility. It hasn't been for over a year. She's suffering. Chloe insisted, her voice rising. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, the words devoid of any actual sympathy. They were a social placeholder, a way to end the conversation. But, as I said, it's not my concern. Please don't contact me again on her behalf. I heard her sputter, "You're an asshole. You know that," before I ended the call. I didn't block her. I just made a mental note to ignore any further calls. The anger of the enabler was just more noise. The final attempt was the one that sealed everything. It came a few nights later, a rapid-fire series of text messages that lit up my phone like a distress beacon. The angry outburst. Sarah, 11:23 p.m. Fine. Be that way. Sarah, 11:24 p.m. I see you. You were never emotionally available anyway. You were a robot then, and you're a robot now. Sarah, 11:25 p.m. You're probably still alone and bitter in that sterile apartment. You never knew how to live. Sarah, 11:26 p.m. I'm better off without you. I was right to leave. You're a black hole. I read them in order, each one a layer peeled back to reveal the true, rotting core. The tears and pleas were gone. This was the real Sarah, the one I'd seen a glimpse of in the garden. The one who, when denied what she wanted, turned venomous. She wasn't sorry for what she'd done. She was sorry her actions had consequences she didn't like. This time, I didn't just delete them. I didn't save them. I took a screenshot. It was the final piece of evidence I needed, the confirmation that my calm exit had been the only sane response. The woman was a tempest of blame and entitlement. There was no there to miss, to mourn. The last ghost of what I thought we had was finally laid to rest. I placed my phone face down on the nightstand. The room was quiet. The only sound was my own steady breathing. There was no anger, no hurt, not even pity. There was just a profound, peaceful silence. The attempts at reconciliation were over. She had shown me everything I needed to see. The door was not just closed, it was bricked over. The park on a Saturday morning was our sanctuary. It had been mine long before, and now it was ours. The sunlight dappled through the old oak trees, and the air was filled with the shrieks and laughter of children. I pushed the baby swing in a gentle, rhythmic arc, my heart feeling so full I thought it might burst. "Higher, Dada," a tiny, determined voice asked. "A little higher, sweet pea," I said, giving the swing another soft push. My daughter, Ellie, giggled, her curls bouncing under her sun hat. From a nearby bench, my wife, Lena, watched us, a book open but forgotten in her lap, a soft smile playing on her lips. She caught my eye and winked. This was everything. The quiet, solid happiness I hadn't even known to dream of after the bomb Sarah had dropped on my life. It wasn't a frantic, dramatic passion. It was a deep, steady current of joy. I lifted Ellie from the swing, and she immediately wrapped her arms around my neck, burying her face in my shoulder with a contented sigh. I breathed in the scent of baby shampoo and sunshine. This was my life now. It was real in a way the previous one, with its performative parties and constant need for external validation, never had been. That's when I felt it, the unmistakable prickle of being watched. It was a cold spot on the warm day. I looked up, scanning the perimeter of the playground, and I saw her. Sarah was frozen on the gravel path, about 20 yards away, holding a takeaway coffee cup. She looked diminished. Her shoulders were hunched, and there were lines of weariness around her eyes that even the distance couldn't hide. She was alone. She was staring, her gaze fixed on me, on Ellie in my arms, on the simple, devastating picture of a life moving forward without her. For a long moment, we just looked at each other. The past 2 years telescoped into that single, silent point of contact. The fairy lights, the cruel whisper, the slammed door, the desperate texts, it all flashed by in an instant, leaving no mark. She took a hesitant step forward, then another, until she was standing just a few feet away. The scent of her perfume, the same one she'd worn that night, briefly cut through the park air, a ghost from a haunted house I'd moved out of long ago. "Mark." "Hi," she said, her voice trembling slightly. It was thinner than I remembered. I gave a polite, distant smile, the kind you'd give a vague acquaintance. "Sarah." I continued to gently sway, holding Ellie, who was now peeking shyly at the stranger. She swallowed hard, her eyes darting from my face to the wedding band on my left hand, then to Ellie. She's beautiful," she managed, the words sounding like they were being dragged over gravel. I heard you got married. Congratulations." "Thank you," I said, my voice even. I turned my attention fully back to my daughter. "Okay, adventure girl, all done with the swings? Ready to see Mama?" Lena was already walking toward us, her expression warm but curious. She slipped her arm around my waist, a gesture of effortless, natural possession. "Ready to go, honey?" she asked, her eyes on me, not on Sarah. "Yep, all set," I said. I looked back at Sarah. She was visibly crumbling, her carefully constructed composure shattering under the weight of the reality before her. There was no audience for her this time, no one to perform for. Just me, a man who had become a stranger, and the family he had built from the ashes of the one she discarded. "Take care of yourself, Sarah," I said. It wasn't a wish or a curse. It was a dismissal, a final, polite closing of a door that had, in truth, been closed for years. I turned, and together, the three of us walked down the path toward our car. Lena squeezed my side. "Everything okay?" she murmured. "Perfect," I said, and I meant it with every fiber of my being. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I knew what was behind me, a ghost, a relic, a lesson learned. I settled Ellie into her car seat, making silly faces until she giggled again. As I started the car, I caught a final glimpse in the rearview mirror. Sarah was still standing there, a solitary figure on the path, small and irrelevant against the vibrant backdrop of the park. I didn't hate her. I didn't pity her. The chapter of my life that had her name on it was closed, the book put away on a shelf. And the story I was living now was so much better. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. What do you think about this story? Share it in the comments.